please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. It's the day when the PSU banks are holding forth. I started the conversation, remember, Anuj, on Bazaar saying India's day under the sun. I could well have said PSU banks' day under the sun. It's getting a lot of traction, the Bank of India news as well. And of course, all these days, the PSU banks were, and of course, even corporate lenders like ICICI and Axis, for the past month have been reeling because of the need to provide extra, need to recognize more NPAs after the new Reserve Bank circular. But what is the impact net of all this? PS Jayakumar, Managing Director and CEO of Bank of Baroda, joins us now. Good morning, Mr. Jayakumar. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, first I'll begin with the trouble. With the new circular coming in, will all SDA, S4A cases be recognized this quarter or next? In your case, what is that amount?
Okay, Lata, if you wouldn't mind, can I just make a few opening comments and then go ahead and respond to your question? You know, for the last probably a month, we've been seeing a lot of grabbing media headlines and a lot of day-to-day subject matter discussion around public sector bank in particular. And obviously, it's driven by the high level of NPA and a localized fraud that has happened in one of India's premier bank. And this has created both negativity and a fair amount of anxiety among number of stakeholders. My response to that primarily is this: public sector banks still continue to have very significant market share in the banking industry, 65% plus. Most of the public sector banks, including Bank of Baroda, have over 100 years of history and continue to command customer loyalty. And we have also contributed significantly or disproportionately to the financial development and the social sector development in this country. Just about any project of any significance in the infrastructure has all been funded by the public sector banking or have a very significant share of the financing. Now, due to a variety of factors, we have this NPA problem, but there are also a number of good structural changes happening. The government process itself has improved or reduced substantially the risk in the infrastructure projects. Board governance has substantially increased. There is a build-up in the capital, both on account of infusion and QIP. The reform processes that have been set would significantly improve the quality of services of the bank. We're also moving to high economic growth. We're getting into GST and large amount of data that would enable us to underwrite better. So given all of these things, I don't see the need for, the significant amount of the pessimism. I just think we have to be clinical about the issues we have, address the structural issues, and then move forward with the continued focus on growth. That's really where at least I'm from Bank of Baroda on that side. So I would say let's reduce this negativity and pessimism. Problems are there. They will get addressed. And we are in an economy that is on a significant rebound. And there are a lot of positive factors that should enable us to continue to focus on growth.
Okay.
That broadly is the opening.
Sir, that's good to hear.
And now I'm ready to answer your question.
No, I completely take your point. And yesterday we had yet another market veteran saying much the same thing, that, this is a localized fraud in one branch, and, LOUs and LCs are given all over the place for, 75, 100 years, and it's just one localized branch. I take your point entirely on that. But, the other structural thing which the Reserve Bank has done is what perhaps looks like an AQR2, which is good. I mean, it's probably the last bit of poison. But I just want to put some numbers to it. I have a Credit Suisse report which says that your specific NPA could go up from 11.3 to probably 16% because they're taking the entire SDR, S4A cases. What is your own assessment?
I think we have about, as disclosed, about 9,000 crores of SDR in S4A.
Okay.
I don't think all of them will flow in. We can assume a majority will flow. That doesn't matter. See, the changes in the accounting circulars, accounting policies does not affect finally the net NPA you're going to suffer. All it does is to change either bring forward or postpone the recognition norm. So if in this quarter we do have a very high level of provision, the next year is going to be very, very solid.
Absolutely.
So in some, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. So we're not unduly concerned about it. These are the policies, we plan for it, prepare for it, and move on. But I think that the next year we should expect a 12 to 15% return on equity on the enhanced capital, at least from Bank of Baroda's side is concerned.
Okay, that's good to hear. Mr. Jayakumar, good morning. We were just speaking with Bank of India a while back. He was telling us about how they've made 7,000 crores of recoveries already, and they plan to see about 2,000 to 3,000 crores more of recoveries over the next couple of months. I wanted to know on Bank of Baroda's end, what would the recoveries look like currently, and how much more can we expect?
I don't want to get into a specific number because the results are
Sure.
due at the end of this month. But broadly, I would say to you this way, that if the NPA numbers, if the provision numbers are higher because of the revised accounting policy, we would still remain comfortable with respect to our capital adequacy and our net NPA number and our coverage ratio. And we would see a much better result next year.
Okay.
So I think I just want to look at it as some kind of a front ending which has happened to us twice before in terms of bringing the losses forward.
You know, I just want to also come back to that point that Lata was making about the NPAs. For the industry as a whole, you spoke about Bank of Baroda in particular, but for the industry as a whole, because of the new norms, on an average, how much do you think the NPAs could go up by? Currently, I think as of December, we're sitting at 8.5 to 9 lakh crores of NPAs for the system as a whole. How much do you think it could rise to?
I'm sorry, I'm not able to comment on it. I've not really looked at all of the banks that are there. I would only think about Bank of Baroda and say to you that there would be some pickup in the net NPA number and the gross NPA number, some of which will be offset because of the growth, but we'll still be within the zone of comfort.
Okay. Is there any renewed zest for recovery?
Well, I think I would say the risk to the recovery is in two parts. Part one is some of the NCLT issues don't get settled in the time frame we expect them to, which is the first quarter of next year and the second quarter of next year, and maybe something towards the end of this month. So that could get potentially delayed, but again, I don't see that extending for too long.
No,
so
sir, I said positively.
Okay.
I meant, Mr. Jayakumar, positively. What was the zeal? Are you all going after recovery with greater zeal?
I think so. I think the positivity is first and foremost that the steel and the cement sector recoveries seems to suggest that we will have a reversal of provision. That's a positive thing. And then it obviously provides us the headroom to provide for any additional slippage that is concerned. Second, I see there is a greater degree of focus and energy around collection, both with respect to small and big tickets. And as this intense pressure keeps on, collection will happen. And finally, the attitude is somewhat changing, because when people realize that eventually collections would happen and their assets would be repossessed, then there is a tendency to come forward and come to a resolution table. Okay. So all in all, I think these are positive steps. But on the other hand, we have to be execution focused and get the benefit out of it.
Just one small niggling issue. PNB is paying. How much does PNB owe you on the Narendra Modi issue? And have they agreed to pay with riders? I
have zero exposure.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not in conversation with them on recovery or collection. We don't have any exposure.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Jayakumar, growth. Would you have capital left for growth? What would approximately your target be for loan growth this year and next?
We're staying with the guidance, Lata. 12 to 15% is what we indicate, what we have been talking about quarter after quarter. And that's a number that we are seeing on a quarter-to-quarter basis. As you know, even last quarter, we are at some 14.44 or thereabouts. So I would expect that we would, unless there are some unforeseen circumstances in the next 20 days, I would expect us to continue with the growth momentum. The next year, I would think we can expect a little bit higher number, because our distribution with respect to retail would further pick up the volume. And I would think there is an opportunity for corporate growth coming from the rebound of growth. So overall, I think we are pretty sanguine about next year.
All right. Okay. Mr. Jayakumar, thanks a lot for joining us today. You joined us on a good day today. Actually, it's been a day of PSU banks, up about 4.5%. On that note, actually, before we invite our next guest, I just wanted to get Ashwini once again, because the Bank Nifty is now making highs of the morning, 152 points higher, and of course, a lot of PSU stocks are surging. Do we have Ashwini with us?
Okay, I think we'll get to him maybe in a few minutes.
No, actually, Ashwini, okay. Thoughts on the way the market is reversed? Because, obviously, I think your short trade would have been stopped out. Have you taken longs already? And how are you approaching the market from here on?
See, the Bank Nifty is building up another strong move. It's helped because of this PSU Bank news. B, I think the yields are now also beginning to play in. So you had these two sides, and I think now NBFCs are moving up strongly. So today PSU banks could do fairly well. So this is a good time to get into this BOB, SBI, Canara, etc., because they could have a big day today, because this was a part which wasn't participating in the short covering, and because of that a lot of realty stocks and other laggards are also beginning to move. So I think the short trade is over. You could have follow through today, because this is kind of, market is taking it as a macro news. If Bank of India can recover 7,000, others can also recover, and hence you could get into a 250-300 point further bank nifty rally.
So stocks like Canara, Bank of India, these stocks can still be bought, Ashwini?
Yeah, it's their day today, because for last few days they haven't really participated, but now there's a small sense of hope. So at least a pullback can be engineered here.
All right.
Okay.
We are coming back at 10 a.m. for more trades, Ashwini. Thank you very much for joining us with that interlude. We are getting back to the banking story, and now we are joined by Mr. R. Gandhi, former Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Gandhi, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Sir, the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what is the best way to solve this PNB issue? We are given to understand by bankers that there is the standoff, PNB not sure that it has to pay. Do you think the government or the RBI has to step in and ask them to pay, because otherwise it hangs like a cloud?
Good morning. Yes, PNB as of now has both the legal and moral responsibility to pay off the amounts that has been invoked by the other banks with reference to the LOUs. So I would definitely expect that the Vice Council will prevail on PNB and they will pay off. The conditional which we hear of, that a conditional payment which they are kind of proposing, that is understandable from their perspective why they want to put in that kind of riders, but that is I would think that is a negotiating point rather than a final position. I would definitely expect that finally PNB will pay off.
Okay, what about the industry in itself, Mr. Gandhi? Because of the new framework that we've seen, what kind of uptake do you see as far as NPAs are concerned? Currently, it's somewhere around 8 to 9 lakh crores for the system as a whole. How much do you think it could rise to?
See, if you would recall, for the past several years, Reserve Bank had shifted its focus away from NPA to stress assets. Because stress assets are more important, and the difference between stress assets vis-a-vis the NPA is the regulatory forbearance which had been given. So, which was also Reserve Bank had in a planned manner started withdrawing it, and it is now completely stands withdrawn whatever forbearance was earlier given. So, by that way, in that process, obviously, there could be an uptick in NPA, because whatever was need not have been recognized in NPA until yesterday. Today, it has to be recognized in NPA. So, and the impact of that will be one on the bank's provisioning, because the moment it is NPA, it requires additional provisioning to be made by the banks, and in due course also further if it is not properly recovered and other thing. So that provisioning cycle has been set on. That's the first major impact of these new instructions which have come from the Reserve Bank to the banks. But that is in a way that is a right one, because that way the entire world get to know what exactly is the problem with the banks, and accordingly the financial side or the balance sheet side is either being strengthened by infusion of additional capital or recovery or whatever. So that's what. So the number increasing, that is, I would think it is only an optic, because from the beginning for the past 7 years we have been looking at the stressed asset scenario rather than just NPA. Okay.
No, I would agree with you, sir, that this is the last big. I mean, it looks like an AQR2 to me. Would you agree that this will end the problem? The poison will be out.
That's correct, because by this the entire problems of the stress will be fully accounted in the books of the bank, and it will be publicly disclosed.
Okay. Yes. Well, the other thing I wanted to ask, and that's the last question, the Reserve Bank has also said in that circular that on first default, banks should start looking to resolve. That is, SMA 0, so to speak, on the first day that the party resolves. Does this look like just replacing what SEBI was trying to do by asking for public disclosure on the first day of default? The Reserve Bank has come in from the bank side, and therefore, is it the stepping stone for a much cleaner banking system going forward?
See, first of all, there is, in that respect, there is no change in the instruction which was earlier and today, because the matter of a default is a default irrespective of whether it will be recognized as NPA or not. Because NPA recognition comes after 90 days or whatever thing,
yes.
So that comes much
true.
later. But the default, even a single day default, is a default only, number one. Number two, what the Reserve Bank has said now, earlier when it is in SMA 0 type of accounts, bank might have taken it a little lightly because hardly 5 days it is in default, 10 days in default, with an expectation that the parties will bring back the money within in due time. Now, to put a little seriousness in that effort, the Reserve Bank has compelled the banks that the moment something is SMA 0, you should start talking with the parties how they are going to conform to the repayment guidelines within due dates. So that is the expectation, to put a seriousness among the parties.
Okay. Well, point taken, sir. So one hopes, therefore, that we will not have accumulation of NPAs in the future because of the seriousness that the Reserve Bank has almost mandated in its circular. Thank you very much, Mr. Gandhi, for joining us and explaining some tricky issues in the banking system. Just to put that into what should be buys and sells, we have a banking analyst joining us, Krishnan ASV of SBI Cap Securities. Krishnan, good morning. Today's been a big day for public sector banks. Would you recommend in the banking sector a buy on public sector banks?
Yeah, I would. Many thanks for having me on the show. I mean, all these are relief rallies. I think, as some of the experts on your show have been saying in the past as well, these are pops that you tend to see in the PSU banks fairly frequently, and these are largely driven by news flows in the sector. You want to see these accompanied by reforms which are more structural in nature, and I think that takes a little bit of time. It doesn't happen overnight, Lata.
So, Krishnan, what about something like a Bank of India? You know, the management just told us that they plan to see about 7,000 crores of recoveries. But I take your point. I mean, these are stocks that have eroded wealth for investors for many years now. No faith here?
No, so we don't quite have, formal coverage on any of the PSU banks. And so I would refrain from giving any stock-specific views on the PSU banks. But what I'm saying is, as a trade, they do tend to move, they do tend to react to news. So to that extent, any positive flows that you tend to see will obviously have a fairly solid effect in terms of where these stocks are headed.
Okay, and what about ICICI Axis?
Yeah, so corporate lenders, especially Axis and ICICI Bank in that particular order, we do have a preference. We do believe that come the second half of fiscal 19, we should start building in some recovery in ROA trends there. So most corporate lenders, we do believe ROAs should see the troughs by the first half of FY19, and from there on there should be a fairly strong recovery, because remember, we haven't had any NCLT resolutions in fiscal 2018. Okay. There's a big hope that some of these resolutions, some of the big ticket resolutions will come through in FY19, whether first half or second half. Our sense is, even if you give it a little bit of time, by the second half these will start accruing to earnings.
Sure.
All right, Krishnan, thanks a lot for your time today. That's the view on banks. The Bank Nifty is now up 206 points, and of course today's move is being led by the PSU banks, and that's impacted sentiment overall. If you see the PSU Bank Nifty, that one is now up about 3% right now. Ashwini is back with us, Mitesh as well, and Rajat Bose also with us. So Ashwini, for now you're carrying long. So what would be the stock calls now?
What is the collateral effect that PC Jeweler is moving up? So a lot of these beaten up stocks which were in some way related, they are now beginning to move up. JP Associates is moving up. So that is now leading to more stronger short covering. I think today these PSU banks could be up 8-10% because now the bigger shorts may tend to reconsider their positions because first 45 minutes, 4 to 5% rallies often see follow through. So BOB is a buy with a stop of 132, target of 146. Canara Bank is a buy with a stop of 240, target of 255. And State Bank is a buy with a stop of 250, target of 265. And often when the market is in a mood to pull back, tends to take a small piece of news and tends to extrapolate. We shouldn't, conclude from the market reaction, what should or should not happen.
Okay, yeah. In fact, the PC Jeweler right now is making highs of the day. Just pull out that chart of that stock intraday, that one as well right now at the high point. So, Ashwini, the point here is that today you could have a good day for PSU banks, but that may not mean much in terms of, gains from here, from positional traders' point of view.
Obviously.
Okay.
See, this entire move is a pullback, and today, the ranked laggards are also participating. So, yesterday's rally on the Bank Nifty is continuing because that is where the shorts are biggest. I think it should easily outperform the Nifty as well as CNX IT.
Okay. Well, Mitesh and Rajat have also joined us. Good morning again to you, Mitesh. Fresh ideas on the indexes and the stocks?
Yeah, so I have two buy calls. I spoke of Wipro early in the morning. That's a buy with a stop at 292. Look for 308 as the target. And UPL looks good. That's a buy with a stop at 711 for targets of 750. And I think I would like to add a PSU banking name. I think Bank of Baroda, Ashwini just highlighted. It looks very good. I would keep a slightly tighter stop at 136. Look for a 150 kind of a rally.
Okay, IT and PSU banks seem to be the favorites today. By the way, future consumers has now moved up further, so it's up another 7.5%. That's the big mover that you have in the broader market. Huge volumes being traded on future consumers this morning. Rajat Bose is also with us. Rajat, good morning. Would you also be trading anything in the PSU banking space? And if not, what else would you be looking at?
See, in today PSU banks are a no-brainer. I mean, you can buy Can Bank, you can buy State Bank. State Bank also looks pretty good. So PSU banks, you buy at current levels, put a stop, put a money stop because all technical stops are being taken out and it is moving further up. So from that perspective, PSU banks with a money stop of about 1% to about 1.5%, you can ride that rally. Apart from that, I've chosen two stocks. They are showing fairly good bit of relative strength. Voltas, I would put a stop below 642.50 and target would be 653, and Jet Airways looks good to me. My target is 703 and I put a stop loss below 688.80.
Okay. Ashwini, just one more follow-up on Fortis. That is making highs of the day.
See, that's not really based on any sort of news. So I would stay clear of those sort of stocks because it tends to be volatile. You want to buy it around 135, 140 and avoid it around the 160, 165 type of zone. So I think today's call is the PSU bank and we should go with that.
All right, guys, we have to wrap this up. Thanks so much for joining us.